Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Empowered Life. I'm Dale Thomas Vaughn. This show is sponsored by the Good Men Project and the Global Center for Healthy Masculinities. You're here because you're looking to live a more empowered life and to hear stories of men who have lived one. Today, I want to talk about going from the lone wolf, or what I like to call lone wolf syndrome, to the full pack, or what you might have seen in The Hangover as your full wolf pack. We're going to talk a little bit about why men do choose to go it alone and what happens when we decide to become brothers. So at some point, during all of my men's groups, at some point, most men have mentioned that, and you probably have felt this too, that you feel like you've gone through this world a little isolated. And it's easy to do that. It's easy to think, maybe I can do all of this by myself. Maybe I can win all by myself. The movies tell us that we can do that. We sort of glorify the lone wolf. And maybe we can do it all by ourselves, but it sure as hell isn't as much fun. And there's this old idea that drinking alone is somehow automatically sad, right? Like, it's kind of a funny analogy that seems to kind of ring true, actually. And that analogy actually extends even further for me. I like to think about how many $6 beers I've wasted hanging out with guys who don't really matter in my life. And there have been moments early in my self-awareness that I was surrounded by people and never felt more alone. And that all changed when I began looking for allies instead of just looking for drinking buddies and space fillers. Now my idea of friends and the kinds of guys I want to be around are the kinds of guys who can be in the trenches with me, which is sometimes emotional and vulnerable and challenging and very close quarters. And those guys who are willing to go there with me, they understand the true value of the victories. So even when we're doing the drinking buddy thing, they're better at celebrating, right? So it's the capability to be full with other men that I'm looking for. And tonight's guest represents to me an organization that I deeply respect as allies in the quest to help men live more empowered lives. But he's also a man who models this himself, who lives this himself, and I believe he's going to be a really good influence for us tonight about how to go from that lone wolf to the full wolf pack. So I want to introduce Boysen Hodgson from the Mankind Project. And if you don't know the Mankind Project, I'll tell you in just a second here. Boysen is the Communications and Marketing Director of Mankind Project USA, which is a nonprofit mentoring and training organization that offers really powerful opportunities for men's personal growth at any stage of life. Boysen's been facilitating men's work for over a decade. He's a co-founder of the Springfield Open Men's Group and author of The New Macho, a credo for the new masculine. Boysen has been featured in numerous radio programs and publications, including A New Conversation with Men, The World Changer Sessions, Reclaiming Male Role Models, The Good Men Project, Dallas Voice, and the Sunday Times of London. He's an urban homesteader, a dedicated and super grateful husband, a pre-adoptive foster parent to 2 awesome little girls, which we're going to hear about, I'm sure, and a pretty competent treehouse builder. Boysen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dale. That was a great setup too. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's that conversation we were having just a second ago about how valuable it is not only to have men in your life, but to know that you can have a tough day and the guys are still going to be there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasted $6 beers. I like that. That's a visceral. I get that.
Right? Yeah, I've sat in a lot of pubs and thought, what am I doing here? Why am I watching this football game I don't really care about with guys who don't really know me when I could be doing anything else that's more fulfilling? Not to say that football isn't by itself great. But, yeah. I want to open up with the question I like to ask, which is, how have you lived an empowered life? And maybe if there's a pivotal moment where you chose to choose that empowered life instead of the unfulfilling style. I'd love to hear your story.
Cool. So I'm going to take us back about 10 years, and through my mid-20s into my very early 30s, I had chosen, I was in a relationship with a woman that was certainly not very fulfilling or empowering for either of us. And I kind of watched as I chose over and over again to make my universe smaller and smaller and smaller, and to cut ties to, I had almost no friends in my life. I had very little, I even had very little connection to my family, my brothers. I have 6 brothers, only 5 of whom I knew at that time, but I have 6 brothers, and I didn't even have close connections to my brothers during that period of time. And there was a pivotal moment that didn't happen instantly. It didn't happen overnight. And there was a realization that my world was never going to get any bigger if I continued walking on the path that I was walking on. And that was horrifyingly sad for me. And I began making choices little by little to insist on owning what I was feeling, insist on being able to just tell the simple truth about what was going on. And that relationship ended as a result. And then I was seeing a chiropractor, and after about the 3rd chiropractic session, the chiropractor took me out in the hallway and he said, "Hey, you're obviously going through some stuff. There are all kinds of changes happening in your body. I mean, there's emotional stuff that seems to be going on with you. Have you ever heard of this thing called the New Warrior Training Adventure?" Which is the main training program, the flagship training for the Mankind Project. And I had known about the New Warrior Training Adventure since 1996 and had said no, 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 no over and over again at the same time that my universe was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And he made that invitation, and I said yes. I think I first said fuck you, and then I said yes.
How often the transition from fuck you to yes changes our lives.
It's the calling, right? Yeah. It's the calling. It's the I knew something was waiting for me, and he just happened to be in the right time in the right place at the right time. Yeah. That was a pivotal moment, and that man definitely. Yeah, thanks, Wayne. Thank you, Wayne, for inviting me. That was a pivotal moment.
Where's Wayne now these days?
I believe I haven't been in touch with Wayne in quite a while, but I think he's still in practice at the same chiropractic office in Greenfield, Massachusetts, and I now live about a little more than an hour away from Greenfield and don't get up there all that often.
I have guys in my program do this exercise where we actually write out a 300-word sort of testimonial as a gratitude piece to a mentor. And I ask them to then set up a coffee date with this mentor who is theoretically still alive, and to go and sit down and in person deliver this 300-word testimonial about how they, in a pivotal moment, changed their lives, changed these men's lives. And I have done it myself as well, and it's one of those things where you don't realize how where you get to be really grateful, can affect your life and someone else's. It's a beautiful moment. I wept openly. So.
Yeah, gratitude practice and so there's an obstacle, there's a hurdle, right? For most men to overcome, for most men to actually step into that space of vulnerability, to sit face to face with another man and tell him what you love about him and tell him how grateful you are for the impact that he's had, and that could be anyone, that could be a man or a woman, but I notice that seems to be a real edge for a lot of men, and certainly has been for me at different points.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that. Let's shift into talking a little more about mentors and how they work. when I talk to a lot of guys who are going through any kind of transition in their lives, I ask a few questions, and one of them is, are you seeking mentors actively? Do you know who you want to be a mentor? Do you have sort of a job description laid out of the kind of mentor you want in your life, and are you approaching them? And that's sort of my superpower. You know how everybody sort of has that hidden superpower? Mine is I'm really good at somehow or another recruiting a mentor. And I have figured out that it's really just comes down to knowing what you want and asking for it. But these guys, the guys who are really good at going out and asking that, and when I say really good, what I mean is you don't have to be really good. You just gotta suck it up and do it sometimes.
Sometimes really good is just willingness.
Yeah, just showing up in a 100% kind of way. Like, I want to be here for a few minutes with somebody who's maybe down the road a few years ahead of me on my career track, or maybe they're good relationship advisors for me, or maybe it's somebody who's going to help me understand my relationship with my father, or whatever it is. Just being real with that guy can be really powerful for men. Did you have any experience going through this phase in your life when you went from the fuck you to the yes? Was there a phase there where you decided mentors were sort of a key piece to your transition?
Yeah. I don't know how conscious I was about taking them on, and so after I went through the New Warrior Training Adventure, one of the men who I met there, Will Flanders, first, on the New Warrior Training, in being connected to the Mankind Project, one of the things that I was so blown away by in going through that process was there were a couple of men who were on that training who I didn't know if they were leaders. I didn't know who they were. I just knew that they were staff on the weekend. That's the way it works. There's a huge staff. But there were a couple of men who I saw standing up there in front of the room or working with other men, and I knew in my guts, I want to be like that guy. I want to have skills like that guy has. And just was blown away by the sense of presence. Like, I didn't know what to call it at that time. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it felt like. But men who had incredible presence and incredible authenticity, men who just stood in their bodies so comfortably and openly, not fronting, not hiding, not armored, not just there, just totally empowered. So yeah, Paul Kushner, shout out, and Joseph DiCenzo, shout out. Powerful men. And another one of these powerful guys, Will Flanders. And Will, after the weekend, he's a much older man than me, father figure age guy, invited me to come sit in his men's group. And I had sat in a couple of other kind of open peer support groups, and they were kind of lame. And he invited me to come sit in a Mankind Project men's group. And it took me about a month to actually get the courage up to show up to that. And he became a father figure, mentor, combatant. He was somebody I got to fight with in a way that I had never fought with another man, and in a really healthy way, to just really engage in a battle. And he went on to, about 3 years after that, he was the man who stood in front of Kendra, my wife, and I when we got married. He was the officiator at our wedding, and he walked us as a mentor through that entire process of getting married. And he's still the first men's group that I helped co-found. Will was the brainchild of that men's group. The men's group that I have now in Springfield, that I co-founded with another friend of mine, it was Will's influence as a mentor that helped me step in to that with confidence. And yeah, and I've thanked him. Yeah, I've had some really good tearful thank yous with Will.
Good. Would you like to use the awesome power of the camera and the Good Men Project to give him a thank you right now. You're welcome to use this camera. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
Here you go. Go fire away.
Hey, Will Flanders, I'm calling you out. So I want to thank you. It's been a decade now, and you know where I am. You know what I'm doing. You know the process that my wife and I are in. And as terrified as I am, as sad as I am, as difficult as it can be, I learned things from you about how to be in relationship with me, with my wife, with these beautiful little girls that I am now a father to, that I did not know before. And I'm really grateful to you for helping me learn those things. Thank you.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That is really cool. I got chills just listening to it.
Yeah, it's cool. I just got my my thing for later with the fortune cookie. It just came to me.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do it then. Well, give me the long version first, because we have a few more minutes here. For those of you watching, I like to wrap up by asking our guests to sum up the wisdom that they would impart to themselves maybe 20 years earlier, or to anybody who's coming up along the road. If you could sum up all of the wisdom you can into one fortune cookie size bite, what would it look like? I'd love to hear yours, boys, and I'd love to hear maybe some background about where it comes from as well.
So how many minutes do we have?
You've got a solid 3 minutes.
A solid 3 minutes. Thank you. David White, one of my favorite poets. The Well of Grief. Those who will not slip beneath the still surface on the well of grief, turning downward through its black water to the place we cannot breathe, will never know the source from which we drink the secret water, cold and clear, nor find in the darkness glimmering the small round coins thrown by those who wished for something else. You and I talked a little bit about grief, and so the wisdom, the fortune cookie wisdom that I would leave would be dive into that well.
Yeah.
There has been nothing more powerful. I've had a sad 24 hours. It's been a hard 24 hours in my home, which is natural. And I am so grateful that I have the ability to actually feel that now in ways that I never experienced that before I started on this process of learning skills to do this. And I have men in my life. Last week I went to my men's group, and I took 20 minutes of time in my men's group to cry and express the grief that has been welling up. And I don't have to explain it. I don't have to justify it. I don't have to write it away. But to experience that and be witnessed in it is so powerful. So the fortune cookie that you just opened says, dive into the well of grief.
That's beautiful. I have a poet friend who talks about every emotion is beautiful for its own reason. It is beautiful by itself. And it was in my deepest melancholy and blue period when she told me that advice, and it's very similar to what you just sort of described, which is if we're lovers of truth and beauty, the truth and beauty of each emotion are worth diving into. And so choosing one instead of the other is not really logical. So I have since tried, now I'm not perfect at it, but I've since tried to really dive into those emotions, and that deep grief is real. And thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for sharing it with me. I can't speak for everybody else, but I will have to say it's tough. It's tough to do that in person. It's even tougher, and I hope everybody appreciates what it takes to do that right here over the live interwebs and to a perfect stranger. But I appreciate you. Thank you.
Mm. You're welcome.
I'm going to wrap up here real quick. If you guys like this episode, be sure to subscribe. To the next one, we'll have Kevin Lavelle, a good friend of mine. He's the founder of Mitson and Maine. His company makes men's dress shirts that are made from fabric that is wicking and stretching and sort of made for guys who live in the South and need to go to work every day in a dress shirt. It's an amazing story. He was told by a lot of people he couldn't do it, and he's, I think, 29 or something like that, and he made it happen. And this past year, Esquire named him in their top 20 game changers, I think. And he's just really growing like crazy. He's a great guy. So I'd love for you guys to show up and hear his story. And if you want to access more life-changing training, lessons, and videos on intention, on motivation, on inspiration, head to empowermentorship.com. Subscribe to my newsletter there. I'm happy to send you everything I have. I also want to give a shout out, Mankind Project, MKP, that's Mankind Project, mkpusa.org. Go ahead and check those guys out. And they are launching, Boysen, you're launching a relationship course tomorrow, right? It's the Risk Challenge.
The Risk Challenge, yes. Hashtag RISC Challenge, Risk Challenge. Relationship, intimacy, sex, and communication.
Who doesn't like that? So you guys make sure to check that out. And until next time, remember, you have the power to boldly live your purpose, to surround yourself with greatness, and to feel the exhilaration of the empowered life. Thank you for joining me.